Hello. Almost shortly after reviewing Spider-Man 2, I'm going to review Spider-Man 3 just so I'm prepared for when I go to see The Amazing Spider-Man. Now this is going to be a very controversial review because I actually really loved this movie. I like Spider-Man 2 more, but this is my second favorite of the movies, okay? And if you can't stand that, then go away. Simple as that. I'm going to give my honest review of it. So, Spider-Man 3 was released in 2005. Once again, it starred the it was directed once again. Hold on a sec. Sorry about that. It was once again directed by Sam Raimi. The producers were Avi Arad and Laura Ziskin. Co-producer was, I believe, Kyle Cooper. Don't quote me on that. And blah blah blah. Once again starred the acting talents of Tobey Maguire as Peter Parker, aka Spider-Man. Kirsten Dunst as Mary Jane Watson. James Franco as Harry Osborn, and this time around the New Goblin. And Rosemary Harris as Aunt May Parker, and Norman Osborn as William Dafoe as Norman Osborn, and like one or two visions that Harry has of his father and whatnot, and etc. Now the new talent. Oh, and also J.K. Simmons as J. Jonah Jameson, the name I forgot in the last review. Now, the new acting talents are Thomas Hayden Church as the Sandman. Very interesting choice, but I thought he did a pretty good job. And the biggest controversial thing ever, Topher Grace from that 70s show, I believe, as Venom, as Eddie Brock, aka Venom. Now, that is one of the many things I will discuss in this video. Alright. Okay. Now, I really loved this movie. I did. Once again, I'll say it again, I like Spider-Man 2 better, but I really enjoyed it. And like with the other two, I saw this on opening day back in 2005 in theaters in 3D, and it just amazed me. I rewatched it just now, and and I still think it's as great as it once was. Now, I'm going to discuss a few major complaints that people have with this movie, and explain to you why I disagree with them exactly. First off, one of the biggest complaints is that there's too many villains. Now, in this movie, there is the New Goblin, the Sandman, and Venom. 3 villains, when the other movies only had 2 villains, and people saying there's too many villains. I don't really see a problem with it. I mean, I guess it's just personal preference, but I don't really see the problem with it. I kind of liked it because it was kind of a nice change of pace. I don't know, maybe if there was just 2 villains, people wouldn't have complained so much. I don't know. But I don't really see the problem with it, quite honestly. And especially like the New Goblin, who eventually turned good, so there was only 2 villains at the end. Like, it was you can't honestly tell me you didn't expect him to be in this movie because of the ending of Spider-Man 2. You cannot honestly tell me that, if you're intelligent, that you did not expect that to happen. Honestly. I mean, I saw it coming a mile away, and I was extremely naive with it when it came to shit like this as a kid, and I still expected it. Now, let's talk about some other things. Well, then of course there's Venom, and I mean, it was about time that Venom showed up in a Spider-Man movie, and Sandman the same way, because they're two of my favorite villains, okay, in the Marvel Universe, okay? Quite honestly. And then alright, so yeah, I enjoyed all three of the villains personally. Another complaint was that, although the complaints on Harry becoming a villain in this movie are very minimal, the ones that don't complain that he is a villain, which are the majority of them, usually complain about the way he's portrayed as, you know, much different from the way his father was portrayed in the first movie, where he doesn't have the same type of costume, and he has a different glider, and he has those swords and whatnot. Well, quite honestly, I think it... Now, please note that some of the stuff that I explain my opinion on in this review are basically what Sam Raimi and the others in the cast and crew said the reason why they did it that way, but I agree with them. Alright, basically, it's like, in the comics, the Green Goblin has been portrayed in many different ways. There was the classic Green Goblin, which they portrayed in the first movie. There's the Ultimate Green Goblin, which is basically an actual goblin that has fire powers. Okay. I never read the Ultimate comics, or the Unlimited comics, I guess they're called. But I did play Ultimate Spider-Man for the PS2. I own it, and he's one of the bosses in there. Alright, so, yeah, that's kind of interesting. So that's why I kind of liked it. This new glider just looks so much cooler. I mean, he can maneuver so much easier with it than his father could with his old Batwing glider. It's called the Sky Stick, this one is, because it's much faster, he can maneuver in and out of buildings easier, and just makes him a much more formidable opponent against Spider-Man, or Peter in this case. Plus he has those ionic blades, and quite honestly I've never heard any complaints about the ionic blades. I think most people were pretty content with them. As I was. They're pretty cool. Yeah, I mean, he can even use his glider as a hitting weapon in the air. How badass is that? And then, another huge complaint about this movie is that there's not enough Spider-Man action. There's too much romance, and this is one of the only complaints I can kind of understand where they're coming from. You know, it's a Spider-Man movie. You expect to see the majority of the movie Spider-Man, but there is a lot of romantic tension. I'm not saying that I didn't expect it, because I expected it after what happened and whatnot. Because much of the Spider-Man comics was romance. But it was kind of disappointing, I'll admit. Yeah, and another complaint is that Spider-Man seemed fighting without his costume so much, and I don't really see why people complain about that. Why does it matter as long as he's fighting? There's two times when he's seen doing this, and that is when he first fights Harry and when he fights Harry again. Both times he fights Harry. And I enjoyed both those fights, just simply because they were so action-packed, so well choreographed. You know? See here. And yeah, and it made Peter think, it showed Peter that Harry's not trying to hide anything, right? Harry's trying to tell him that, I know who you are, and now I'm coming to fucking kill you, right? Harry's not after Spider-Man anymore. Harry's after Peter Parker, okay? That's what that scene was trying to symbolize, and it doesn't seem like you people understand that. And let's see here, other complaints. Man, there's a lot of complaints about this movie. Another complaint was the fight scenes. People said they were terribly choreographed. You couldn't tell what's going on. I'm not even going to get into this because it's just so dumb. Every single one of the fight scenes I felt were well choreographed. Every single one of them. I could easily tell what was going on. I mean... Fuck. Okay. Another complaint was the emo scenes that Peter Parker did, and that's just one of the stupidest things ever, because he was not being emo. Do you even know what the word emo means, okay? Emo means that you keep brooding on tragic events from your past. That's the definition of emo. He was not doing that. I would accept the word douchebag, but not emo. He was being a douchebag. He wasn't being emo. Get your fucking terms straight. Okay, now, the single biggest complaint that there was about this movie was Topher Grace, who played Eddie Brock Jr., aka Venom. The complaint about Venom wasn't that he was in the movie, because I think everyone wanted him to be in this movie, okay? That wasn't the complaint. The complaint was how he was portrayed in this movie, because if you read the comics, I believe it's this way in any version. I'm not sure if he appeared in all the versions. The only version that I actually read was the original and Spider-Man Noir, and I don't believe not Noir, Spider-Man 2099. I don't remember if he appeared in 2099 because it was so god-awful I just quit. But, although, in the Ultimate Spider-Man game, he appeared the normal way, so I assume it's that he does in the Spider-Man Unlimited comics. But he basically a bloodthirsty beast. He really has no voice to speak of except for a few times he talks. I mean, in the Ultimate Spider-Man game, he does talk a few times. But other than that, he really has no voice to speak of. Or at least not like he does here. He doesn't really pull back the goo on him. It's his face to show his face at all. And people complaining that he just doesn't act like Venom should. And you gotta think, what looks good in a comic won't necessarily look good on screen. I know nowadays they could probably pull it off, but this was 7 years ago, back in 2005. We have a lot better filmmaking technology now than we did in 2005, okay? I'm sure it would have looked cheap, cheesy, and terrible. And that would have brought down my review of the movie a lot, effects-wise. Because the effects would have looked terrible back in 2005. They just would have, okay? It's 2005. Plus, I like how they actually gave Venom a personality. Kind of like Carnage, you know? Carnage is my favorite Marvel villain ever because of how much of a personality he has. Really, they made him seem more like Carnage, which I enjoyed. Okay. Now that I got that out of the way, I do have complaints. For example, I didn't think Venom got enough screen time. I believe the movie was like 3 hours long. I'm not exactly sure how long they'll allow for movies to be in theaters, but I'm sure they could have added another hour for theaters. Sure, it would have been long, but it's Spider-Man. Anyone going is probably a hardcore Spider-Man fanboy, unless they're like parents going with their kids or something that don't really like, and the parents don't really like Spider-Man. But for the most part, I'm sure they would, such as me, would have been willing to sit through it. And if they wouldn't have been willing to put that in theaters, then they could have just I don't know, cut it out and then put it on the DVD. Back in on the DVD. Be right back. Okay. That's definitely my biggest complaint with the movie, is I just didn't think there was enough screen time for Venom. Oh, another one of the biggest complaints that as there's a movie that I find to be completely stupid is the cheesy Spider-Man posing in front of the flagpole. It's like, I don't really enjoy that part, but I didn't hate it either. It's just, people like to complain, don't they? Just ask AVGN. People like to complain about the dumbest things, like, why do you care? Why? It's dumb. It's dumb that they added it, but it's dumb that it's one of the biggest complaints. It's like the Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, I believe, nuke thing. It's like, sure, it's dumb, but why do you complain about it? It's even dumber to fucking complain about it. It's there. Who fucking cares? It's just not even 10 seconds of the fucking movie. Out of 3 hours. Another thing about this movie is that it did seem rather short to me. Most people say it seemed rather long, but for me it seemed short. Actually, it was 3 hours and it seemed only like an hour and a half. I'm not even kidding. It seemed really short. Another complaint I had is that they added Gwen Stacy. I mean, was there really any point in adding Gwen fucking Stacy in the third movie? Just out of nowhere. I don't really think so. And my camera's almost out of time here, so I'm gonna have to quit this and charge it. So overall, seriously, people, stop complaining about nothing. I mean, I know you're entitled to your opinion, but seriously, you have some of the dumbest complaints ever. And I really enjoyed it. Once again, I enjoyed Spider-Man 2 more, but this movie I still really enjoyed. So I'll give it an 8.5 out of 10, because I really enjoyed it. Rate, subscribe, do all the good stuff. See you after, guys. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.